Agriculture experts say grocery store prices could ease in the new year. Early predictions say the cost of items like sugar, coffee, corn are set to decrease after a 3-year surge. So joining me now is Dominick Reuter. He's a senior reporter with Insider's retail desk. So this is some good news. We're getting a lot of crappy news, particularly about your grocery bill, how it's going to cost you more for your sides at Thanksgiving. There's all kinds of stories on this. But tell us, what's going on? What is driving the predictions that we will see a market shift in the new year?
Thanks for having me, Anne-Marie. And I think that there's quite a few things that are driving it. Some of the biggest thing is that I think that supply is finally starting to sort of catch up with demand, and you probably heard a lot about that in the last couple of years of there's too much demand and not enough supply, and that's really what drives prices to go really high. But some of those things that have gone into those sort of food inputs have started to stabilize and build back up, and that has really enabled some of these what we call dry grocery categories to start to level off and even in some cases dip back down.
So then what falls into those dry grocery categories? Where are we going to see the biggest changes?
So some of the ones that you mentioned already, right? Coffee, corn, sugar, those things go into a lot of other food that we eat, and it also gets turned into the food that we eat in terms of dairy and meat and so forth. So all of those things sort of work together and flow through the system. What's particularly interesting here is that yesterday on the earnings call with Walmart, CEO Doug McMillon said that that company was expecting to start to see price deflation, which is a weird thing for an executive to say. I'll tell you. So that raised some ears, and deflation is what it sounds like. It's sort of the opposite of inflation.
Yeah, that's definitely good news, especially for people who have big families, because, man, those grocery bills can get quite large. Are there products, though, that we could potentially see increase next year? And if that's the case, what would be driving those products? Because I understand when we're talking about foods, I mean, there are all sorts of sort of X factors, including Mother Nature, that could shift everything for us.
Nature's a big one, and so the Biden administration actually came out, I believe, yesterday or earlier this week about a piece talking, a report, an annual report talking about sort of the climatological impacts that Americans are going to face economically, and weather and climate is going to continue to put pressure on our grocery bills going forward. In the near term, that can dip, that can soften a little bit, but most things are at least from the government's perspective, going to get more expensive in the longer term. But in the next couple of months, we could get some relief, which is certainly going to be a welcome thing for a lot of households. I'd also add that deflation is not a very great thing that policymakers want to see. Deflation, we usually talk about trying to keep inflation under control, positive, but within a limit. And deflation is just something that a lot of policymakers and businesses try to avoid because it is just a whole other can of worms that policymakers have to try to address.
I can imagine. I can see how it's the yin and the yang, deflation and inflation, how one can follow the other. Dominick Reuter, thank you so much.
Thanks for your time, Emery.